Hello, everyone. It's Henry here again. Hopefully, I haven't bored you to death, and you're still with me on this month journey into happiness. How have the tools been working? Have you been able to practice any of them? I spoke about derailers and about how you owe it to yourself. You don't owe it to yourself to listen to me, right? That's not why I'm here. You owe it to yourself to try to find the tools that will work for you, right? And I'm providing some tools that worked for me and have worked for those I've coached and worked for colleagues, etc. And I do this for you so that you have more equipment when you go out to do battle every day of the year. The second half of the month, I'm going to talk specifically about business and life in Japan. And I guess it's a context for the things I've talked about over the last 15 days. Just to revisit, everything starts with knowing who you are and understanding what are your values, meaning what are the things you always illustrate regardless of period in your life, regardless of challenges. What have you always been? And what would you do for free, right? What type of activity or habit do you have that you just can't let go of? Understand that, right? And then once you understand that, try to practice imbuing that into your day, taking notes so you can see what kind of progress you've made. At the same time, try to meditate, try to focus, try to be in the moment in order to clear your mind and assess where you are, as well as to assess who you are from time to time to make sure that you haven't started with the wrong assumptions about who you happen to be. So with those techniques and practicing those techniques, we're going to talk about Japan. Now, if you work in Japan or you've started your career here, you're just starting your career, you're going to find a couple of challenges. The first, and comes from questions, but it's also something that I personally think is a good place to start, is meetings. Japan seems to be full of meetings that don't necessarily have a concrete resolution or expectation of resolution as they start. Meaning, meetings just happen because they just happen. They're opportunities for people one person usually, to share information, everyone to listen, and then leave. You may come in with an expectation or a hope something will be decided, something will be finalized, but a lot of times there's no decision making made in meetings. And that can be very, very frustrating to people. How do you approach that? And how do you use these techniques to do so? First and foremost, in my experience working with people in Japan, I've only worked in Japan. Most of my colleagues have been Japanese people. Most of my supervisors and superiors have been Japanese people. So I think I know what I'm talking about in my context. But everyone has something they want to do, something they want to get done. There's an agenda that they have. And I don't mean a negative agenda, just something they wish to accomplish that may not necessarily be apparent to you, especially as most of us, especially Westerners, especially young people, have their own agenda. They look around them, they see problems, they want to solve them. And they're going around telling people, let's fix this problem, let's fix that problem. And to be honest, sometimes people don't see the problems you see, right? And if you want them to solve your problem, but you're completely ignoring what their problems happen to be, why should they listen to you? So let's start with what they're dealing with. So that first technique about, first of all, understanding who you are, right? Where you can really add value. Not because you know something, etc., but by understanding who you are. And find opportunities to listen to these people. Not even necessarily ask them questions. Have lunch. There was a man named Shirasaki-san. I wrote about him in my book, Making It in Japan. He's an older gentleman. And I'd sit at the lunch table with him at Mitani, and he would just talk. If I was quiet enough and I just, maybe kick off the conversation with how are you type of thing, eventually a conversation would start, especially if someone has something on their mind. And he would share with me his issues, what he was dealing with, etc. And then I started finding ways for him and I to work on projects together at Mitani. Another example is I was working with a colleague in my previous job, and they were really excited about implementing these tools. You have this problem, here's a tool. You have this problem, here's a tool. And, what I found quite entertaining, quite funny, and a little frustrating was that they never asked me what my problem was, and that's can turn people off. It can turn them off, especially if you're foreign. And, the person who's listening to you doesn't understand your culture, doesn't understand your values, doesn't understand where you're coming from. And yet you start the conversation with, here's a problem. Here's what I can do. Imagine on the other side of that. Imagine if you were meeting someone you didn't know, didn't understand, couldn't even relate to, hadn't been cultured or socialized to relate to, and they start coming with you with their ideas. You have no reason to trust their ideas at all. Zero. So the way to solve long meetings, and I've done this, is I do a lot of footwork outside of meetings. I don't mean I go drinking with my colleagues. I rarely do that, but I do talk to them. I'll talk to them before work. I'll talk to them during work. And I will literally walk up and say, how have you been? How's your day? Now, doesn't work the first time. They're like, what's this person asking about my day? But if you do it consistently, if that's who you are, that's who I am. I will literally walk up to someone and say, hey, how you been? How are your kids? I'll remember things. And that consistent behavior builds trust, and then people start to speak to you. Now, that consistent behavior comes from not doing what I've just told you, but by doing you. Do yourself. It's a great way to spend your time. By being authentically yourself, you can consistently do that, whatever it happens to be. It could be sending people notes. It could be sharing lunches with people. It could be giving presentations. Whatever it is, try to do something consistently that builds your credibility with people, that builds a feeling in them that they understand who you are, right? Who you truly are, and that you understand them, that you not understand. That's too hard. You can't say you understand someone, but more along the lines, you're trying to understand that person. So I spend a lot of footwork just talking to people. Additionally, I'll find opportunities to get people together for people sharing ideas. I'll look and observe as they talk. I'll get information. If at work, I'll do a lunch session. I might invite a trainer over, and the trainer does a lunch and learn, and I listen to the questions people do. I'll do surveys, getting feedback from employees, and just observing the world around me, so where I can sort of get more information that helps me then engage them. But how that addresses long meetings? Well, what happens is you understand that the people in the meeting, even the person running the meeting, you start to understand what they're trying to get done. And you also understand, even better, how they get things done. Maybe it's not the meeting where decisions are made. Maybe a meeting serves a different purpose in your company. Maybe it just serves as a place for people just to understand what's going on, right? While you think a meeting is a decision. Well, decisions can happen. In my family, we make lots of decisions, but we never need a meeting for them, right? Whoever said that meetings are where decisions are made? You can make decisions anywhere, and most people do. So understand your audience and understand where the opportunity comes for a decision to be made, and then the next time you're in the meeting, you're not hearing about things you don't care about. You're hearing about the people in the meeting championing your ideas. Boom. So that's where it works. Be yourself. Find ways to get the information you need. Find ways to get the decisions you need made. But don't let the world define you. There's a meeting. Oh, I must do something in the meeting. No, you don't. Whoever invented meetings? Before meetings, people got things done. And after we're gone from this planet and meetings don't exist anymore, things will still get done. You don't need meetings. That's in the workspace. In the private space, one thing that a lot of Japanese, let's say mothers, particularly because women are usually at home, unfortunately, for some and unfortunately for others, but in the community, it's hard to build a community within Japan. People, you find there's a lot of ghosting in Japan. There may not be a lot of deep relationships, and it can feel very isolating to you. And so a lack of community support, a lack of community is something that a lot of people suffer from here in Japan. How my family and I deal with that is with consistent behavior. We are consistent in the fact that we open up our home to anyone, literally anyone. So far, there's probably a limit, but we'll open up our home for people to come have dinner with us, just to hang out, watch TV, have a party, etc. And that's the same for our Japanese neighbors. We want our Japanese neighbors to feel like they can come by anytime and hang out with us and have a place where they can feel like they can relax outside of their home, right? Don't need to worry about cooking or anything. Just come enjoy the Seals family. Now, as you know, Japanese do not do this. This is not their thing. It's like a meeting. They don't do that, right? They don't make decisions in meetings. They don't hang out at their neighbors' homes. But if you observe your neighborhood, if you observe the people in your neighborhood, you start to see there are ways to perhaps address their needs by your consistent behavior. And this is what happens in our neighborhood. There are lots of mothers who are way too busy. They got way too much going on during the day, right? So what we do is their kids come over to eat. You know, they'll just come over. Their mother's busy. We'll tell them, it gives you time. We'll literally say this, it gives you time to relax. And believe it or not, they just dump their kids on us. The kids want to stay for dinner. They want to have macaroni and cheese. I don't know why kids dig it, but I used to love it too. Macaroni and cheese. You observe your neighborhood. Not everyone's going to be for it. Not everyone's into it, but you'll find certain people, and then it's one kid, then it's two, then it's three. I mean, the other day, literally, one parent just dropped their kids off and said, we'll be back in an hour. It happened at a birthday party, and it happens during the week. And it's cool. It's actually quite cool. But it didn't happen because, we begged people to come. It happened because we observed there was a need. And then we went to that person with the need, and then it sort of snowballed. But that technique, right, is our technique because we're happy with people coming to our home. If you're a more private person, you don't like cooking for a whole group of people. My wife loves cooking. I love making people laugh and enjoy themselves. So that's our thing. And so by find something that works for you to build your community. You could see a bunch of elderly people dealing with a challenge. Go help them clean their home, help them, shovel snow, observe the needs in your neighborhood and address them in the way you can address them. And it's the consistency that works. I'll end with this. Imagine if you woke up every morning and the street, the homes around you, even the air was different every single day, right? And you would feel uncomfortable. Let's just say that. You'd feel uncomfortable every night before you went to sleep. You're like, because the world would be inconsistent. And that's why you can usually find your way to work or to wherever you go every day because the world's relatively consistent and you have a certain peace of mind. Imagine you wake up every morning and you're not sure whether the air will be breathable every morning, right? You're not sure. It changes from day to day. Sometimes it's methane. Sometimes it's cyanide gas. You just don't know what the next morning will be. That's how difference can be perceived by people, right? If I have to deal with someone whom I don't understand them, and I'm not sure from day to day whether they're going to be this person or that person, a happy person or whatever, I'm going to be unsure. Even if it's poisonous, for instance, let's say the air is poisonous. At least if it's poisonous every day, I know I need a mask and I'll just wear a mask, right? So I'm going off into almost science fiction world. But what I'm trying to say is that consistency is key. Consistency brings peace of mind. Consistency brings lots of things. And your bosses, your colleagues, etc., like at work, they expect consistency, usually a high level of consistency, because then they will trust you. Related to this, if you're in the wrong job and you can't be consistent, get out because it's not you. And you're never going to build that level of consistency that allowed you to build you, so to speak. So anyway, that's for another day. But speaking about work, remember, try to find ways to understand the problems of people around you and then solving them in a way that is true to who you happen to be. Meaning you can keep doing it and you can keep getting better at it and you start building following and then boom, you're there. So that's how these techniques, listening techniques, knowing yourself, etc., can help you regarding life in Japan. Tomorrow, I'll talk a little bit more about Japan and hopefully you'll find that useful. Anyway, have a great one. Bye.